Welcome to Tech Simplified, and my name is Sly Gittins. Today I have Christine Zagielski. Did I get it right, Christine?
You did well.
All right, we got the name, so we had to start off with a laugh, but one thing I'm going to tell you about Christine, her career journey is phenomenal, and we're just going to give you a little bit of it because I know we might have to do a part two, but let's get right into it, Christine. How did you land where you are today?
I've been in sales and in technology sales since my first gig out of college. I started interning at IBM when I was in school, and then I just got hired in technology jobs. I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. It just sort of happened that way. I was trying to make the most money in college, and I asked my business professor what internship pays the best, and he said IBM, and that's really how I landed in technology sales because they paid $10 an hour. But what I'll say is, since my first couple of gigs, I really started getting a lot more thoughtful about my career. The first couple of gigs were about how much can I make, how hard do I have to work, where am I a good fit? And then as you get a little bit more mature in your career, you get a little bit more strategic in things you want to learn, impact you want to have, relevance you want to have, and all of those things. So I spent a good portion of my career at Hitachi Data Systems in sales roles, selling storage solutions and data centers. And it was probably one of the most fun times I've ever had. It was also the point in my career where I was the first time leading a sales team and just really excited about, not only that role, but where we were helping our customers actually succeed. And I had been there a while and I realized, gosh, I'm telling a lot of my customers that they need to go learn new skills because their skills are going to become irrelevant. And then what are they going to do? And I thought, I really need to go challenge myself. I spent 12 years at Hitachi. It was amazing, but I need to go challenge myself to see if I can be successful elsewhere. So I really put a lot of time and energy into thinking, what do I need to learn next? How do I need to stay relevant? And I thought, I need to go learn about security. I need to learn about managed services and networking and storage. And so I went to a partner to go learn those skills and to go see how it was to work in a smaller organization. And that was exciting because we acquired a whole bunch of companies and, I got to really stretch my skills there and it was fabulous. And then I got a friend of mine reached out to me about joining his company, which was a startup out of Palo Alto, California. And at that time, and it was all around data engineering and data science. So I thought, wow, if I still want to be, on the leading edge of things, not bleeding, but leading edge, I need to go learn about that. So I went and did a stint there. And then we ended up selling our company to Apple. So I thought, where do I want to go next? And I did a lot of due diligence and talking to all the big tech companies. And I landed on, I think I want to go to Microsoft. And I didn't know anyone at Microsoft. So I didn't really know what I was asking. And all I did know was I had been reading everything about Microsoft in the news, and I had read everything about Satya and what he was like. And I just thought, I want to be there because I want that type of culture. I want that type of relevance to my customer, and that's where I want to go. And so I sent a text message to a friend of mine from college and said, do you know anybody at Microsoft? He did. I got on and I celebrated my 4-year anniversary just last week.
That's awesome. That's a really, you shared a lot of gems within that statement and that conversation you just had.
I could keep talking about myself. I could talk about myself for hours.
Yeah, but I think what you talk about yourself, you also empowering us who's listening, right? And I think that's what's so fantastic. You talked about in the beginning, very similar to me, is I wanted to make as much money as I needed so I could take care of my parents and also my family to be, because I'm a 19 and I'm like, well, I'm an English major, African-American history major. I'm probably not going to make that much money. So maybe I need to rethink what I'm going to school for. So I switched to business class. And then I maybe business is still kind of general. If I get a degree in business administration, what do I do with that? Yeah. So then I saw IT and marketing, and me not knowing, I used to build computers since I was 8, but I didn't realize you can have a career in that and make money. I saw Microsoft, tablets and, well, not tablets, like computers at the time and Apples. I never thought about associating myself to work there. So, but then I started looking backwards, because then when I used to run track, I always used to go to the end of the race and run it the other way. So I know when I need to run it normally, when to run faster, right? So I'm like, all right, let me
I
do
like
the same.
that.
So yeah, so the same thing for school. Like, I'm gonna graduate. How much money can I make? So I looked at when I was doing English. I'm like, whoa, it's gonna take me like 30 years to make $100,000, and I'm not even guaranteed as an English teacher to make that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. When I looked at tech, I'm like, I'm really good at routers. I remember doing Netgear installations. I was like, think of me of Geek Squad before Geek Squad existed, from my neighborhood in Brooklyn. And I took my telecommunication class. I'm like, man, this is easy. I've been doing this since I was like 15. I'm like, how much do these people make? I'm like, 70,000 in 2 years, in a year, 100,000. I can make 100,000 now with these certifications. I think I found what I need to do. And then when I went into class, I saw my tech people, they had a hard time articulating themselves. I'm like, well, man, I got the gift of gab, man. So this is going to be easy to run around. So let me add marketing to this. So I might need marketing. Then I saw Facebook come out. I'm like, well, Facebook is pretty much a marketing company and a tech company. And I think if you look at it, either Facebook and Google are the two highest ad revenue companies, right?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
both of them merge. And that's how I got started for me. But then once I got in, I'm like, all right, how can I make the most amount of money? Right. And I took a director of marketing role. I'm like, man, $170,000. I never seen that much money in my life. My parents never seen that much money in life. I need that. I absolutely hated my life. I worked 140 hours. The company was great. It just wasn't a good fit. So I remember, like, you know what? Let's get back to the table. It's more about money. And I just had my daughter. So I'm like, am I willing not to be around my daughter? Because some people live to work. I use work as something that I don't live to work, right? I take what I
You work to fund your life.
Correct. So that's why I knew myself, like, well, what type of organization can I do that in? Because you can't do that in a startup, because they need you to live for work, because they don't have enough people to do that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to a bigger company. Worked at Ingram Micro for a bit, and then I was like, you know what? I want to work for Microsoft. I think I could work for them. I had the certifications, and I just celebrated my year at Microsoft. So one thing,
Congratulations.
thank you. So I love what you said about that, is understanding you changed and you was okay with that.
Yeah.
And also one thing you said that was empowering, because I did something similar, is I realized I was learning HP servers when I first started. I was configuring them, I doing all the switches, and I'm like, man, I'm starting realizing that we were selling them at a negative all the time. I'm like, we're not even making any money. I need to learn something else. Let me go learn networking. I'm like, all right, because I like network is big. And then I learned about VMware, and this when VMware was just taking off. I'm like, well, this is gonna cannibalize servers and even networking probably. So let me go learn VMware. And then I did that for a few. I'm like, all right, well, we hit on, like, when I was on VMware's team, I'm like, man, we are in a lot of companies, but security seemed really big, and I don't know anything about security. Let me go. I took a consultant job, and my manager like, you don't even know security. I'm like, well, that's good for you. She's like, how that's good for me? You don't got to pay me $100,000. Pay me 60. He's like, yeah, 60. I'm like, yeah, put 40,000 in my incentives. If I hit my incentives, then you pay me 100,000. But then you don't have to. If I don't hit them, y'all don't lose anything. And
Yeah.
I'm a good worker already. So there was like, you sure? He like, I don't think this is a good deal. I'm like, not for, yeah, you think so, but I knew I was going to hit the goals because I already been studying. I took all the certifications. I had 3 or 4 friends who already was in security. And I'm like, I just asked them, in the part of my deal is send me out to, I was working indirectly for RSA, send me out to their engineer boot camp and let me get trained like how they train their engineers. And once they did that, it was over. I hit my goal. And the same thing I saw with cloud. I'm like, all right, cloud is big. I need to learn it. I took all the certifications, and now I'm here at Microsoft. And I'm like, man, data and AI, one of my accounts are really deep into that. I'm like, well, I need to learn that too. That's where I'm at now. And again, I'm back to being a student. I'm really learning. But it's good because I know if I can do this, this will help me for the next 4 to 5 years, or maybe 3 to 5 years, to be good until I have to find something new again. But
Well, I think we're always students, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're always growing, we're always students. But I think what you said that really resonated with me too is And you look at the race both ways. How fast can you run forward, but also knowing where your destination is so that you're taking the right steps to get there. So I think that's really important too when you think about your career is where do I want to get? Okay, am I doing the right things to enable that journey?
Yep, because I'm at first when I was first starting out, like I want to be a principal engineer, but now I want to be more in leadership. And
Yeah.
so for me to get 100 certifications, it don't really help me for that necessarily. I'd be good to have, but it's not necessarily needed for this trip that I'm on, this journey that I'm on. So how
Yep.
do I need to pivot? Like, I changed up the information. I'm reading more about cash flows, budget statements, turning marketing to actual working capital, right? I don't know COG statements. I remember that in college, but I got to understand these things. When I go talk to CEOs, they ain't talk about the new widget, what button you got to click over here. They want to know what's the business benefit behind it, right?
Exactly right.
So this a fundamental change, but knowing what race you're running, because you end up running the wrong way. That's why I ran the race backwards, so I know which way to run.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so the next question, this goes in perfectly. Women face different challenges at different stages of their life. What's your thoughts about that, and what kind of been your experience, and what can you share to the audience about that?
I think it goes down to what are your priorities at the different stages of your life, right? And we all, I mean, everyone, women, men, everyone experiences challenges as they go through life. But I look at, you know, I look particularly in technology that I want more women in technology early on in their careers, right? So it goes into talking to kids in schools about STEM, getting people excited about STEM, and then it goes to early careers. So really applying for, all of those technology jobs early on in your career. That's sort of stage one. I think that there's a lot of people, not just women, a lot of people that are intimidated in, their first career choice. And my advice is it's your first career choice. It doesn't have to be your last. You should go for the moon and then figure out if you like it. And if you don't, you've got time to pivot. It gets a lot harder to pivot later if you're, counting on a salary and raising kids and supporting your parents and all of that kind of thing. So the opportunity to take risks early in your career is much greater than later in your career. So I always, encourage everyone I talk to early in career, go figure it out, go enjoy, go experiment, and don't worry about, will I be, right for this role? You can make yourself right for the role. Just go in and figure it out. So I think that's sort of the first phase. And then I think the next phase gets to, I see a lot of people who, a lot of women who, and men who will take time off when they're having a family and their priorities change, like your priorities change. They want to spend more time with their kids, they want to be home more. And, there are a number of people I know that have taken a couple of years off and then think that they need to go backward in their career before they take that next gig. And I would challenge that too. Why do you need to go backward? You're still that same person with a different set of life experiences and a different perspective. And so there's, in my mind, there's no reason to take a step backward. You may need to study technology. You may need to study what's relevant from that aspect of it. But there's a lot of people that have to study that didn't, take a couple of years off to be with their family. So I think that's sort of the second stage. And then that third stage, when kids are leaving for college and you've got a little bit more time and a little bit more perspective, and I think that's when it becomes really important to give back. So now I'm at this stage of my life that I don't have kids at home that are demanding my time and attention. So now I've got more opportunity to think about, how am I going to help other women in their careers? How am I going to help have a positive impact on society, and really start thinking of it from that perspective. I'm always going to be thinking about my career. I'm always going to be thinking about what's relevant, but I have the capacity to think about a greater community now as well. So I think there's just different stages. You have different issues to consider, but I believe courage, go forth, believe in yourself, and you're going to have success.
And yeah, that's really good. And that's one thing I try to do is not be afraid for the role and try to do the role that I want to do before I have to do it. And then even if I get there and I find out, like the director role, I found out I didn't like this role. First I was like, I don't like to quit, right? I don't quit. I'm like, I think I climbed the wrong ladder, So why am I here? Like, there's no pride in being here if I don't want to be here. Not good for the company, and ain't good for me. It's okay. But I learned what it took to be a director. So now I knew that. And I took more risks, like even buying houses. I bought a couple of houses, lucked out. Now it's fine. Because now I'm thinking about like, all right, how much money do I need when I get into my late 40s and my late 50s? How much will I need? Like, what does that look like? Maybe what can I do today to take that risk? I remember I moved from Brooklyn to Buffalo, and all my friends were like, why would you leave New York City to go to Buffalo? And I'm like, well, the cost of living is way lower. I make well over a lot of money at this time. And in Buffalo, I can live like a king, right?
Yeah.
So what I did is I bought 2 rental houses here. And as soon as I got here, and then those houses has appreciated. It was hard. My family was there. My wife's family is a couple of hours away. But I knew, because I lived here, I went to school here, I knew the market already. So I'm like, to me, it was worth the risk. And so far, it's been working out, right?
Right.
But
It's awesome. And even if it didn't work out, you would have learned something and you would have figured it out from there. But the fact that you tried and now that it worked out for you, it just goes to show you got to not be fearful.
even this podcast, Women in
Yeah.
Tech, and it's ran by myself, who's not a woman, right? I was panicked. I'm telling my wife, I'm like, does this make sense? Am I drinking something right now? Can I have a Women in Tech podcast? And then, I reached out to a few of the ladies that I knew that, yeah, you can. Just make it authentic and why you're doing it. And I'm doing it for my daughter. And it was fine. But I'm glad I did. I wouldn't be ever talking to you right now if I didn't take that leap of faith. And like you said, but it's different stages. So I'm in my stage with my family. I realized I'm not willing to give 140 hours every week to a job. I used to do that crazy stuff before.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I got my kids, right? So that's a little bit different. And
140 hours a week every week is not sustainable.
oh yeah, it's not. I can tell you, I'm losing my hair. I don't got that much hair to begin with. I'll lose it a little bit of hair. My wife was upset, and I knew something had to change, right? So, and I realized I wasn't using the skills that I enjoy using. That's why it took me 140 hours a week, right? So then that's again, you climbed the wrong ladder, you're using the wrong skills. So you got to be really purposeful. And one thing my mentor told me is stop being opportunistic and be intentional with what you're doing. So that's one thing I've been kind of carrying it forward now, is being more intentional. So that gets
I think that's exactly right. That's exactly right on being intentional. I 1,000% agree.
Yeah. So one thing that the last question I have for before I let you go is, what is your managing philosophy for managing your career?
I think I live by 4 pillars when I'm thinking about my career. And those 4 pillars we've touched a little bit on already, but it's really around being supportive. So, it's not always about me. It's not always about my accomplishments. It's what I've done to support others, what I've done to enable others, what I've done to make sure that others are successful. So it's always really important to be thinking about how are you supporting others. So I think supportive is the first one. I think the second one is tenacious. And I think that's just a don't give up kind of attitude. Just go after it. Sometimes it's a grind. Sometimes we're told no, but it's absolutely the opportunity to keep trying and to keep trying until you get there. I remember specifically one story. I was managing, early in my management career, and this sales guy, we had just heard that we'd lost this opportunity, and his response was, you know what? I'm glad he told us no, because that's one more no that's getting me closer to a yes. I never get yes on the first try, but I know I'll get there eventually. So I think tenacity is really the second pillar. And then we both touched on being authentic. I learned, my first job, I was the only woman in the sales org. And I thought, oh gosh, I have to learn to play golf. I'm going to cut my hair short. I'm going to learn to fit in. And, over the years, I learned it's about being authentic. It is not about fitting in. And I'm going to be my true self. And I'm best when I'm my true self. And my true self might not look like everybody else. But if I'm authentic, then I'm happier and we're going to have better results. And then the last one is relevance. And we talked on this. I mean, it is important not only that you have relevance, but that what you're doing is relevant to your customers, right? So relevance to me is one of the reasons I chose Microsoft. I knew Microsoft would be relevant to our customers. And then I knew being in the Azure world that would be relevant. And I mean, I remember when I was interning at IBM, I went to this happy hour, and it was for a gentleman that was celebrating his, I don't know, 25th, 30th anniversary at IBM, and he sold typewriters. And I just remember thinking, wow, what are you going to do tomorrow? Because that job's going away, like selling typewriters. And it's always about thinking about what's next and being relevant. But I think if you live by, just those four pillars, supportive, tenacious, authentic, and relevant, that you're going to have an awesome career.
Yeah, that growth mindset and never stop learning. That's one thing I think I saw early in my
100%.
career is when I first took my first job, it was an older gentleman there and he wasn't keeping up anymore. He's in tech support and you could tell he stopped learning. So he didn't
Yeah.
last. So I'm like, what does this guy do? Like he is 60 plus. The stuff that he learned is no longer obsolete. He's not in the management, so he's still based on his technical chops. What does he do? And I told myself I didn't want to be in that role. Not that it's bad or indifferent.
You just always have to grow. You always have to learn. You always have to stay relevant.
Yeah. And I also think the relevancy matters, right? Because I think that's something that helped me in my career is I found a relevant solution at that time. Because if it's not relevant, it's not going to be sold. Like me trying to sell you a horse and buggy when cars came out, it's going to be an uphill battle. So I'm like,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So with the last minute I wanted to share is how can the audience get in contact with you? So many times my guests, I have like younger or career women and men who want to reach out. What's the best way for them to find you, Christine?
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way to find me, Christine Zagielski. It's pretty simple. Yep. And I consider that my primary social media platform. I laugh when I say that because I've got teenage kids that maybe don't think of LinkedIn as a social media platform, but I do.
I do too. So anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for joining. Your story is phenomenal, and the best part of it is still being written. So I can't wait to do part 2. So
I love that.
So until next time, Sly Gittins and Christine are out. Peace.